It was a gray Tuesday morning in Houston, the kind of gray that didn't bring rain, just a stillness that hung over the city like something was waiting to happen. I sat at the kitchen island, nursing lukewarm coffee and staring out the window. The blinds were half open, letting in the kind of light that didn't wake you up, just reminded you the day had started, whether you were ready or not. I'd built this company with my siblings, brick by brick, not metaphorically. We literally laid the floors in our first office space. Back then, it was us against the world. Now it felt more like me against the silence between us. My back ached from another sleepless night. Not because of age, though I wasn't 30 anymore, but from a different kind of wear and tear, the kind you don't ice or stretch out. A fatigue that settles somewhere between your chest and your gut. Dad used to say, family is built on respect, not just blood. He wasn't poetic, but that one stuck with me. Maybe because it always felt like a quiet warning. Or maybe because I'd started to feel invisible in rooms I helped build. 10 years ago, I pulled the company out of a tailspin during a liquidity crisis. I don't say that to brag. I say it because no one else ever did. No emails, no speeches, just silence. Still, today felt different. The calendar said we had a strategy meeting at 10 o'clock a.m. And something about the tone in my sister's email, please be prompt, told me this wasn't just about numbers. The building hadn't changed. Same glass doors, same receptionist who never spelled my name right on visitor badges. But the conference room felt colder today. Maybe it was the new light fixtures. Or maybe it was the way everyone was already seated when I walked in. My sister sat at the head of the table, sharp blazer, chin up, she didn't smile. My brother sat to her left, flipping through a folder he wasn't reading. His eyes barely met mine. "Thanks for being here," she said, like I'd been invited, not summoned. I nodded. "We've been thinking," she continued, "about how to lighten your load. You've carried so much for so long." I tilted my head, waited. "We're expanding operations," she said, "but we'll be taking this next phase without you. You deserve rest, not stress." There was no conversation, no debate, just a decision already made, wrapped in concern, and handed to me like a gift I never wanted. My brother cleared his throat, still not looking at me. The legal advisor shuffled some papers. My sister called me emotional, without using the word. "You've given this company your all, and it's time we protect your peace." I nodded again. Because what else do you do when your throat closes and your heart starts to pace, but your face has to stay still? They called it a relief. I knew it was a demotion. Back in my office, the warmth of old family photos on the walls didn't match the temperature in the air. Something felt off, like I'd stepped into a version of my life where I wasn't needed. Then I saw it. A meeting invite in the company calendar for a pitch I'd been nurturing for months. Only, my name wasn't on it. Investor briefing. Tomorrow, led by my sister and brother. I stared at the screen. "They wouldn't cut me out," I whispered, half to myself. But the voice in my head replied, "They already did." I called my assistant. "Hey, can you check something for me?" A pause. "I was told your access was limited now. I'm not sure I'm supposed to." I ended the call, not out of anger, just emptiness. I walked out without saying goodbye. No one looked up. No one asked why I was leaving early. Downtown Houston passed in a blur. Familiar buildings, signs I used to take pride in, knowing we'd done work for them. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but it felt like I was floating. I passed the corner cafe where I used to take weekend calls. The hotel we once pitched $1 million client. All the holidays I missed, the birthdays I skipped, justified because I was building something. At the freeway exit, the dam broke. Just one tear. It slid down my cheek, quiet, deliberate. That was all it took. "They didn't just fire me," I whispered. "They erased me." The traffic moved forward, so did I. Inside, a shift began. No shouting, no grand vow, just a quiet understanding. This wasn't family. This was a hostile takeover, dressed up in concern and served on company letterhead. And in that silence, something inside me didn't just break. It sharpened. The morning after the meeting, I parked in the same spot I always did. The sky looked clearer, But inside me, it hadn't stopped storming. I walked into that building not as someone returning to work, but as someone returning to witness. I wore my calmest smile. That one you practice when your insides are falling apart, but you refuse to let the cracks show. I pushed open the conference room door. The room was already in motion. My sister, Raven, stood at the front, perfectly poised, flipping through slides with my branding, my numbers, my projections, not a flicker of hesitation in her voice, not a single mention of my name. She called it her vision, said the logistics partnership was her latest strategy. "We've spent over a year refining this model," she said, "to bring maximum efficiency at scale." I sat at the far end of the table, didn't flinch, didn't interrupt, just watched. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's surveillance. The executives nodded. A few clapped. The presentation landed just right, my presentation. There was something surreal about watching people applaud your work while you sit there like a guest at your own funeral. The kind where no one notices the casket is still breathing. But betrayal doesn't always sting. Sometimes it burns, quietly, deeply. 14 months. 14 months of late-night number crunching, drafting slide decks from airport lounges, rehearsing projections in the shower. All of it, standing there now, dressed in Raven's words. I let her finish. I waited. Then I clapped. Once, twice, slow, deliberate. Our eyes locked. Her smile faltered. Just a second. Just enough. "You want the credit?" I thought. "Take it. Let's see how well you dance with fire you didn't light." Then Mr. Goldstein, one of our key investors, leaned forward. He was sharp, older, the kind who notices things others miss. "I'm curious," he said, addressing Raven. "How did you arrive at the adjusted Q3 projection? That pivot seemed unconventional." She blinked, hesitated. "That's based on, the cross-regional volatility trend, right?" I smiled, calm, no smirk, just stepped in gently. "What Mr. Goldstein is referring to is the shift from traditional throughput to dynamic load balancing," I said. "It's a model we built after studying 6 quarters of post-pandemic distribution behavior, specifically the Florida-Texas corridor." Raven stood still, her hands clasped too tight. The room went quiet. Eyes started shifting back toward me. I didn't look around, just kept my voice steady. "There's a difference between leading a project," I added, "and owning its soul." That line sat heavy. No one responded, but they heard it. After the meeting, the hallway outside felt tighter than usual. Echoes of shoes on tile, paper being shuffled behind closed doors. Then I heard her. "What are you playing at?" Raven's voice sliced through the air behind me. I turned halfway, not enough to give her the satisfaction of full attention, just making sure the house you stole has plumbing that works. Her jaw clenched. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. The same expression she used to make in high school when I beat her in science fairs, and she still got congratulated for helping me prepare. "You're being petty," she said. "This is business, Marisol. Grow up." I finally faced her, not with anger, not even with sadness. "I grew up," I said, the day I stopped asking for thanks. I walked away before she could respond. But deep down, I wasn't angry at the theft. I was angry at how easy it was for them to assume I wouldn't notice. I met Thomas at a lunch spot downtown. One Raven and I used to share secrets over cold salads and strong iced tea. Midweek, Houston's air heavy, humidity lingering like regret. Thomas slid into the booth across from me. He smiled, polite, but I saw the tension beneath his eyes, like he'd just swallowed something bitter he didn't want to spit out. "You look good," he said, more flavor than honesty. "Holding up well?" I nodded. The salad arrived. We ate without much conversation. Then I said, "So, what do you think of the pitch Raven gave yesterday?" Thomas paused, fork over plate. He avoided looking up. "It's impressive work. You built something no one else dared touch." That praise should have felt good, but it felt like a warning. He leaned back. "You know, sometimes people at the top make decisions that, well, they ask others not to ask questions." I kept my voice level. What kind of decisions do you mean? He sipped his tea slowly. Some you see coming. Others are disguised as progress. He set the glass down. She asked me to let this go. She said bringing it up now would stir trouble. I swallowed something. Hurt, anger, recognition. Thomas once told me years ago I'd redefine logistics in the South. I believed him because I wanted to believe in family too. After lunch, I walked past the storefront windows, saw my reflection, tight-lipped, eyes sharper. Something inside me shifted from, what if I'm wrong, to, what if I've been ignoring what I always knew? That night, I attended a cocktail gathering with family friends. The sky was an indigo promise of heat still stored in summer nights. Mrs. Landry, a woman who raised kids alongside mine, arrived in white linen, carrying herself like she owned trust. We exchanged small talk. How's the company doing? How's the family? And I answered them lightly, but she watched me with a different gaze. Over wine, she leaned in. Your sister's always known how to erase people without leaving bruises, she said, whisper soft. It hit me not like a slap, but as a burn, spreading under skin. Mrs. Landry told me she remembered the way Raven claimed father's donation drive as her own idea, how she took credit in board meetings for projects I'd drafted late nights. Quiet theft. I kept my face calm, but inside, I felt the old weight shift. Betrayal wasn't just words now. It was a pattern, constructed, preserved, accepted. That evening, I gathered every email, every early draft I could find, old pitch decks with my handwriting, folders on my laptop that still bore my name. I opened a fresh folder in private cloud storage, uploaded proof. I messaged Juniper. I'm gathering what I need. When the time comes, I want this airtight. I thought back to Thanksgiving dinners where I stayed quiet because peace was easier than fighting. To birthdays I skipped because work demanded it. To nights when I believed that silence meant loyalty. But tonight, quiet was no longer protection. Politeness was no longer camouflage. Standing in the mirror, I saw someone balanced on the edge, not broken, not yet, fueled. And if truth is a weapon, I was loading every round. Late afternoon light came in soft through the blinds of the Seattle office, the kind of light that made everything feel calm. Too calm. I was going through flagged documents with the legal team, sorting through contract updates, when I saw the subject line, Re-title strategy, internal only. It was buried in a forwarded thread. I clicked. Inside were lines that stripped the air from the room. Raven, Ishmael Byrne, one of the board members, talking casually, coldly, like I was a logistical inconvenience. Let's start the restructuring process without triggering unnecessary drama. We need her out quietly. Investor expectations must remain stable. Keep her looped out till the announcement, less noise. Each sentence hit like a silent slap, not a disagreement, not even a bad call. This was deliberate, planned. I sat back in the chair, email open, hands cold. So that was it. Not a pivot. A burial. I thought of the nights I stayed in the office when everyone else was home for Thanksgiving. When I said no to trips, to sleep, to birthdays, believing I was part of something, family. They didn't just exclude me, they engineered it. Evening rolled in without my noticing. My phone buzzed, a reminder for dinner at Mom's. Beatrix had invited me, said it would be casual. I thought maybe I needed the noise, the normalcy. Driving out to the suburbs, I rehearsed my calm. Her house was full, as always. Too many flowers, too many appetizers, conversations bouncing off the walls. Mom greeted me like nothing had shifted. That was her talent. She poured wine, laughed loudly, introduced me to a couple of her friends from the garden club, mentioned Raven's rising influence. And then, during a lull, she said it. I always knew leadership wasn't made for fragile hearts, she told the room. You know, Marisol, you have to be harder if you want to keep up. The way she smiled after made it worse. I sipped the wine, then I met her eyes. Strength shows when you still build, even when people doubt you. Silence. A couple awkward laughs. She raised her eyebrows, then turned to refill a glass. After the dishes were cleared and the night stretched thin, I left. No one walked me to the door. Driving back, headlights streaked across my windshield. I felt hollow, Unmoored. Do I belong here? Am I too sensitive? Was I foolish to trust any of them? The city lights didn't answer. They just blurred past like memories I didn't want anymore. I tried to remember my father's words. Names don't define you. Actions do. But it felt thin now, like paper soaked through. Back at home, I opened my laptop, went back to the email, downloaded it, backed it up. Twice. Next morning, I called Juniper. If this goes public, does it hold up? She answered without hesitation. It's damning. Keep collecting. So I did. I messaged Callum Royce. Do you remember the 2016 prototype maps, the ones I sketched from scratch? He replied within minutes. Of course, still have them with your notes. Attached were files I hadn't seen in years, with my initials still embedded in the layers. I opened them slowly. That sorrow I carried. It quieted. Just a little. Enough to hear something else under it. Resolve. I didn't need a handout. I didn't need their praise. They thought they were writing me out. But I was already drafting the rewrite. Chapter 5. The Line. I Drew in Silence has been completed as requested. Ready for Chapter 6. The gala hall smelled of polished glass, expensive perfume, and quiet expectation. Industry leaders drifted in, greeting each other with thin smiles, champagne flutes glinting in the chandeliers. I stood near the back, observing. The mask I wore all week, of congeniality, patience, felt tight. Raven stepped up to the stage. Her speech began with familiar lines. Innovation, vision, growth. They were my words, my models, my hours behind screen glow, lifted from my blueprints. The crowd didn't know. They listened, applauded. Raven's voice echoed off the stage walls. She took credit. I watched, lips pressed together, pulse high. Flashes from the lab night snapped in my mind. One night, I missed dinner with my daughter to stay and finish that final draft. Another night, I rewrote projections while kids slept upstairs. I believed the foundation mattered. I believed in ownership. Later, I saw the slide deck saved under her name. My designs, rendered sleek, polished, credited entirely to her. I approached Ishmael Byrne in a hallway. He shrugged. It fits the brand. Nothing about fairness. Just optics. My stomach twisted. Apologies won't restore truth. Strategy alone won't defend me from erasure. But I kept my voice calm. I kept my heart loud. Evening wore on. They seated me across a table with partners, investors. Yet I was labeled guest. Not founder, just guest. Raven's placard read, Visionary Co-Founder. The hostess placed mine wrong. I told myself not to blush. I stood, caught strangers whispering. A voice asked, Oh, are you Raven's sister? I couldn't stay silent. I cleared my throat. Actually, I'm the one who sketched the initial architecture of this project. Breath held. Some faces went white. Later, walking the slick sidewalks, lights reflecting water, I felt exposed, vulnerable, but visible. Doubt crept. Did this matter? Would this bring more harm than relief? My father's advice surfaced. Sometimes your voice is all you have left. I counted witnesses in my mind, who saw the slide, who heard the accusation, who watched the table label. I stored photos, names, evidence. I resolved then, I will not ever be called guest again. My identity is not optional. Tonight removed a mask. The face beneath starts to breathe. I arrived at the record office in downtown Seattle around 9. The morning was brittle cold, sharp air that made me pull my coat tighter. I carried the old contract with me, the one I'd signed a decade ago. I'd kept it in my safe, but today I needed the public version, needed everyone to see what they'd done. The clerk handed me the registry binder, and I flipped through glossy pages, found the founding documents, original ones, with paper stamps, signatures, all of it. Then I saw the revision. Raven was listed as sole founder, not me. My name had vanished. I demanded to see the version I signed. The clerk pulled up a scanned copy, ink smudge, my signature, my name, right there. I compared, cross-referenced. They mismatched. My chest tightened. Cold betrayal. I stared down the hall outside the office windows. The sidewalks carried people who didn't know, who didn't see. But I did. I walked out, contract in hand, calling Juniper. "I want to make this public," I said. No hesitation. Later that day, I drove to Quaidtech. The lobby was open, clean, mirrors everywhere. I had walked these halls when I was younger, celebrating the first hire, passing out coffee, building something together. Now the halls were cold. I designed the layout. I chose colors. Yet now, no greeting, just eyes down, whispers. When I passed the receptionist, she looked away. Co-workers I once called friends turned to avoid me. At the town hall meeting, staff and investors filed in. I took my seat, physically present, emotionally vacant. Partners I once smiled at didn't return my look. Chairs arranged in perfect rows. Our journey story projected behind Raven. Narratives she told, words I wrote, but no credit. When the meeting started, I stood. I walked to the podium, unplanned. Heart raged but chin lifted. I want everyone to see exactly who started this journey. I held up the original contract and the revised one. Showed timestamps, signatures, designs. The room stiffened. Some faces betrayed shock. Raven's posture tightened. I spoke clearly. These are drafts I finalized. These contracts bear my name. If you believe leadership is built in name and deed, judge what you see. The murmurs grew. Investors shifted. Phones went up to record. Integrity mattered now more than unity. Afterwards, inboxes filled. Press outlets reached me. Colleagues messaged me quietly. We saw. Raven texted the board, calling everything clerical error. Her statement, a misunderstanding. But I had done the work. I thought about peace, but no longer at the cost of truth. I decided to share it all. Public posts, the documents, the stories, even if that meant the fracture would deepen. Some apologies came, ones whispered, shaky, others stayed distant. Integrity matters more than peace. Early morning light filtered through the curtains of my home office in Seattle. Before sunrise, before emails, before any sound except the distant hum of traffic. I sat at my desk, coffee cold beside me, phone in hand. A notification glowed, a message from Seraphine Marlowe. I opened it, a screenshot, early drafts, mine, posted on a legal forum. My name clearly printed across headers I recognized. It was anonymous, yet impossible to deny. Disbelief rolled through me, then exultation. Finally, the truth was leaking through the cracks. Internal messages pinged. "Did you see what Seraphine posted?" "My name?" someone wrote. My phone vibrated with investor curiosity and employee murmurs. The leak wasn't just confirmation, it was ignition. Today, things would shift. Shadows would be pushed back. I arranged every document I'd gathered. Old decks, memos, drafts. I prepared. Afternoon came. I found my father's old leather journal buried in a box in the attic of Mom's home. The smell of old paper met the smell of dusk. I flipped through pages. I saw my sketches, meeting notes in his messy hand, margin comments. "Marisol, this is yours. Believe in your vision. Authentic. Undeniable." I held the journal close, compared entries to contracts and blueprints I had. My handwriting matched the sketches, matched the vision. This was more than drafts. This was legacy. By late afternoon, I slipped into a boardroom of a partner's office. Investors waited. I carried Seraphine's leak screenshot, the journal, archived emails. Raven was scheduled to attend. I stepped up, not with fury, but with clarity. I told the story, not whining, just facts. I showed how the project was built, beginning with my designs, my nights, my name on the drafts. Investors leaned forward. Some faces slackened. Raven arrived, poised. I let the proof speak louder than her statements. When the contract was signed, justice inked in legal documents, founding materials were corrected, my name restored, media outlets picked up the discrepancy. The public record shifted. But victory had its cost. Mom's voice, when she called, was heavy. Some old allies avoided eye contact. Raven issued a statement. "Clerical error," she said. But I saw behind her practiced calm. Justice doesn't erase the scars, it transforms them. I stood in the quiet of my apartment, journal open at my lap, documents scattered around. Family love, once a shield, had been weaponized. Still, I vowed I would build forward, not out of vengeance, but out of legacy. It was a quiet morning in my loft. The same sun rose, but everything underneath it had changed. My coffee steamed gently beside a stack of newspapers, each one echoing the end of a chapter I never meant to write. Headlines read, "Founder Restored," "2B Turnaround," "Truth in the Fine Print." Blog posts dissected legal filings. YouTube clips broke down my boardroom speech like it was a courtroom drama. The legal dust had settled. Raven had signed formal acknowledgement of my role. It was over. Investors offered me a seat on the advisory board of the new Quaid Tech spin-off. The role came with money, influence, power, but I turned it down. I didn't want to live there anymore, in the land of the almosts and the could-have-beens. Peace mattered more than proving a point. Power no longer felt like winning. It felt like returning to a fire just to say, "See, I survived." I wanted something else. Something mine. Weeks later, I met Raven at a quiet cafe tucked off a side street neither of us had ever visited before. It was neutral ground. No reporters, no advisors, just two women who used to share a childhood and now shared scars. She wore black, her eyes tired, her voice softer than I remembered. "You were always better than me at leading people," she said, not quite regretful, not quite proud. I looked at her. I didn't want an apology anymore. I wanted an answer. "Then why didn't you let me?" She didn't respond. Maybe there was nothing left to say. We sat a while longer, and when we stood, we didn't hug. We weren't enemies, just two strangers with shared blood and different futures. I walked away lighter. Life began again in quieter rhythms. I opened a new studio space, small, open, raw. I named it Beyond Invention, a nod to something my father had written in his old journal. I spent mornings mentoring young founders, mostly women, mostly underestimated. I spoke at local universities, not for applause, but to plant seeds in minds that hadn't yet been told no too many times. Mom sent me a letter. No emojis, no call to explain, just her handwriting. One sentence. "I was wrong, and I'm proud of you." Seraphine and I stayed close. Sunday dinners, late-night calls, shared laughter that didn't feel stolen anymore. I kept my father's journal in a drawer by my desk, some pages worn at the edges, smudged by tears old and new. I reread one line often. "You don't have to win the world, just don't lose yourself to it." I didn't get the company back. I got something better. Myself. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, my daughter and I walked barefoot along the shoreline. She kicked at the water and looked up at me. "Did you win, Mom?" she asked. I smiled, the kind that comes from knowing more than you say. "I didn't lose." And that's enough.